Have you ever thought that a visit to the doctor could be lethal for you? The victims we're discussing today probably didn't think so, and yet medical institutions can be deadly for patients because, as history shows, under the mask of a caring nurse can hide the personality of a true psycho.
In this video, we're discussing how dangerous medical facilities can be when undercover psychos and incompetent personnel have access to lethal drugs, which they in turn administer to vulnerable, unsuspecting patients.
We're also looking at technology being used to keep naughty nurses and other medical staff behaving in a more professional, appropriate manner. Welcome to the Security Bros. I'm Ken, this is Diana, and Diana, what is going on with these so-called medical professionals?
If I knew what's going on in their brains, there are lots of cases throughout the world when nurses and even doctors were caught killing their patients, injecting them some drugs in lethal doses. And after such incidents, there always appear some articles like top things we should do to prevent such crimes from happening. But it seems like nobody realizes why we should abide by such instructions. And the interesting fact is that if we know the rate of medical crimes in the USA or some European countries, we cannot find any reliable statistics from Russia.
So first you're saying there are a lot of documented cases of medical malpractice in Western countries. Maybe we start there and then move on to what's going on in Russia, because that is kind of interesting.
Let's jump into the examples we have. And the first part of our examples is linked with Western countries, because I think they're quite different from Russian ones. I'm 100% sure that you have already heard about serial killers like Harold Shipman, Charles Cullen, and Elizabeth Wettlaufer. Elizabeth Wettlaufer is a woman from Canada who kept killing her patients, overdosing them with insulin, even though they did not need any insulin, or they had some diabetes, but they did not need insulin in such lethal doses. It is interesting what she said. She said that if the medical room was completely made of glass, there's no way I could have done what I did, somebody seeing me. And one more interesting fact is that managers of this building where she worked told staff that security cameras were going to be installed after opioids went missing in 2013, but they were never installed. So about Harold Shipman, again, I'm 100% sure I've heard about it, a British doctor who had over 250 victims. He killed over 300 people. Yeah, and he was overdosing them too. And a USA maniac, Charles Cullen, he has over 50 victims. He was doing the same thing. He was overdosing patients with insulin and with some other drugs they didn't need. All of them kept stealing those drugs from the medical storage room and just injecting them, the patients who did not need them.
Yeah, just giving it, just sticking them with that insulin, too much of it, and now they're...
It's horseplay. It was horseplay. It was two horses playing. One murders the other one.
It's like he killed himself.
I guess the first question a lot of people are going to ask is why? What's going on in their head? Like, do you have a solid understanding of the criminal mind?
Well, you know, those killers are falling under the category of angels of mercy, the so-called medical professionals, practitioners who are like under the mask of a nurse, they're killing patients. Sometimes they have different intentions. Some of them say, I killed them because I cared for them. Like they were in horrible condition. I wanted them stop their suffering. And yeah, they killed because they're like too compassionate for them. I don't know.
We didn't know you were going to kill him.
Are you calling me a murderer?
Did I say that?
Well, like Kevorkian, he did kill a lot of people, but they were aware of it. I think they actually were like paying him to do it. Mm-hmm. It sounds like these characters, though, like the patient wasn't even aware.
I don't think that they were trying to do something good for patients. I read some articles about Elizabeth Wettlaufer and also watched some videos about Harold Shipman. They were just very angry people. They wanted to find the victim, which they can like reduce their anger.
What have I done? Oh. What have I done again? What have I continued to do?
They didn't have any good intentions.
They were getting off to the killing. There's a lot that goes on in a medical facility, and so we've occasionally do some consultation when it comes to security systems for these types of buildings. And you can't really fix everything from an electronic standpoint. You know, sometimes it's more of like you use the electronics and security in combination with other layers. There's a scene from the show House where they have I guess it's like the clinic part of the hospital, and a patient comes in, he pulls open a drawer, he grabs a needle, and he gives her some dosage.
Is my heart supposed to be feeling so funny?
It's called adrenaline. It makes your heart beat fast. But not this fast.
Somebody get in here!
I can't remember if he ended up grabbing the wrong needle.
So there I was, in the clinic, drunk. I open the drawer, close my eyes, take the first syringe I can find.
So it's very hard from an electronic standpoint to stop that type of a problem. But what we can do is control access to rooms that have a lot of drugs in them. And that's actually something that we do for some medical facilities. So they, like one in particular, they reached out, they wanted to start with actually a biometric system, which by the way ended up being a complete fail because nurses, the stuff that they wash their hands with all the time, it washes off their fingerprints.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like so sterile, it just gets rid of the fingerprint. And so like they had an issue with like nurses couldn't get doors open. We ended up changing out the biometric system for the keyfob system, which ends up working a lot better, but they originally did not have key card access onto these drug rooms. So anybody could just go in the drug room and just take whatever. Now they have to scan their key fob. They can go into them, but at least now there's a record of them going into that room. They also have security cameras, I think in the room, but also throughout the building. So there is a little bit of accountability. Something a lot of people don't know is you can also put electric cabinet locks. So on all the various, cabinets throughout the room that store the drugs, you can get pretty granular with that. And you can use your key fob to control people going in there. So part of what we do with consulting is to find out how does this all work for the client and sort of a back and forth discussing what actually is reasonable until you come up with a plan that has a good balance of security but also usability. Because if you lock something down too much, imagine you need a needle like in an instant and you're like, oh gosh, where's my key fob? Exactly how locked down do you want something to be, especially in an emergency care type of facility?
So, isn't it strange that you've heard about lots of incidents throughout the USA or other European countries, but you've never heard about such crimes in Russia? You may think that that is because there's no such crimes happening in Russia, and you will be wrong. Because, as I deduce from multiple forums, YouTube, Instagram, 𝐂𝐻𝐿 posts, 𝐂𝐻𝐿 is like a social network in Russia, as Facebook. As I deduce, there are lots of cases that happen almost each day when people write something, oh, doctors killed my mother, nurses killed my father, they killed my son, killed my brother. You just need to Google it, like in Russia, doctors killed blah, blah, blah. You'll find lots of information about that. The fact is that nobody is punished because lots of hospitals in Russia lack even security cameras. You just can't prove who did that to your relative, to your friend. You just can't prove who exactly was the criminal. And that is why nobody is punished. There are no chances to gain some evidence who made the person leave this world earlier than he should. That is why nothing is investigated, nobody is punished.
You know what? It's probably best if we didn't mention this accident to anyone, because people don't understand. And
Who am I going to tell? I can't even think of one person who would be interested.
Let's talk about one horrifying case that happened in Ulyanovsk in Russia. A woman died in a medical blunder that saw her embalmed alive. Ekaterina Fedayeva was mistakenly poisoned during surgery after being administered a formalin drip, which contains formaldehyde, the substance used to preserve corpses. The Russian woman was only meant to be given a saline solution and suffered convulsions and horrible pain for 2 days before dying in 2018. Her mother says, We had no idea it was formalin, and they knew very well that they washed up her body with a poison, and they did nothing to help. Now, I understand that formalin was simply eroding her body inside. People who've performed the surgery already knew that they infused something wrong. They needed to take some urgent measures, but they did not. The mother was begging doctors to do something, but they just said to her, like, go home, cook a chicken soup. It's a quote.
So let me get this straight. So you have a 28-year-old girl. She shows up to have apparently a cyst removed. So this wasn't even like a complex surgery. And then they embalm her alive. She suffers horrible pains and convulsions for 2 days before she falls into a coma. They place her on life support. Her heart keeps stopping. She finally wakes up from the coma only to then die because multiple organs failed. But they did get the cyst. So, nice.
It was an accident, right?
Yeah, you were holding a rock and he ran into it with his face repeatedly until he just couldn't pull through.
I think we should talk about on which rooms there can be security cameras in hospitals.
We were talking earlier about the rooms that you can install cameras in. Now, everybody knows you can't put cameras in bathrooms or changing rooms. The question is, can you put cameras in something like a surgery room, like an OR? Probably in the US, that's probably a no-go. I have seen them in patient rooms in some other countries. I'm in the room. Oh, hello. You know, there's the security camera. That's interesting, especially because, you know, they'll be like, okay, take off your clothes. And it's like, is that recording me? Right? It is. So what about in Russia? You said.
Yeah, I think, like, I know that in Russia it depends on the local laws where the hospital is located. Like if it's located in this region, it's obligatory to put cameras. You can't put cameras, in bathrooms, on changing rooms. But sometimes I know that in Moscow and in St. Petersburg, there are cameras on the intensive care rooms so that if somebody happens in the reanimation, you can just watch the footage and just see what was going on.
So are you thinking in Russia, a lot of this is happening outside of the major cities of St. Petersburg, Moscow, and okay.
Yeah, lots of cases are happening. Like, you know, it's a saying in Russia, like Moscow and St. Petersburg are not Russia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and all of the other regions, cities, I'm 100% sure they do not have any cameras, any door access. They do not have any single thing because Moscow and St. Petersburg are not Russia.
Well, in the last example we used in, oh gosh, I'm gonna mess this up. Ulyanovsk. That's not Moscow or St. Petersburg. Who wants to go to the doctor's office or a hospital and eeny, meeny, miny, mo, that person might, you know, decide to off me. Doesn't make you want to go to Russia, do anything, I should say, medically speaking there. One of the great things about having electronic access control on these storage rooms is that while they can't tell you exactly what drug maybe somebody took, it does tell you who went into that room. They can pull this up. There's all those activity logs.
Yeah.
And so it does help you to narrow that investigation. It's very difficult when you have a staff of hundreds of people. That key card system, it won't even let you in there unless you scan your key fob and then it logs it. So there's a certain amount of accountability. So it does make it harder to then perform these actions without maybe getting caught. So it at least increases the risk. If they know that there's a certain amount of accountability, maybe they'll be a little bit more cautious and stop making those mistakes, like giving people formaldehyde instead of saline.
So what can the conclusion be? I think that the most important point is that Russia should follow some instructions which are based on Western countries. So when you see that in Western countries, lots of hospitals have CCTVs, door access to the medical storage room, well, can you do that too, please? Because if you do not prevent crimes from happening by door access or CCTV cameras, you can just investigate who did that. And lots of people who lost their relatives in hospital can get some revenge for that. So I think it's time for Russia to start doing something in this direction.
Look, the West doesn't get everything right, but in this particular scenario, they do. So if you enjoyed this video, please like it so we know, and share it so your friends know. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I mean, you know, I think I've talked about all the technical crap.